Hey everyone, welcome to another Speed Secrets podcast. Today I have three guests. I have Jay Sinclair, Colin Pascik.
Yep.
I got that right, Colin? Aaron Brooks. Hey, Jay runs, well, I think runs. I don't know if runs is the right word. We'll get into that. But Ranger Road Motors, which is, you guys are going to fill in the details of this, but essentially a team that races in Lemons and some other stuff, but with the goal of helping vets get behind the wheel and go play race car driver. Is that it? Maybe we should just start there. And I'll ask whoever wants to tackle this can handle that. But Jay, that's kind of your thing. Colin, you're a vet that started going and playing race car driver. And Aaron, you and I we met in Turn 10 Studios office the first time, I think, right? When we talked about Forza stuff and how simulation is so cool. But you started talking to me about this program, this Ranger Road thing. So it's such a cool topic program that I needed to have this on the podcast. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Ross.
Who wants to tell us basically what is Ranger Road Motors? What does it do? Who started it? Why? All that stuff.
I'm Jay Sinclair. I was introduced to Mikhail Venikoff over at one of the other Ranger Road events, which is it's called the Ranger Road Freedom Jump. And so I was actually down on base with another group of guys that we were doing something called opposing force. And so that's another story for another time. But one of the photographers just called me up and said, "Hey, I really think you're going to, kind of get what these guys are going for." And he told me about Ranger Road. And Ranger Road basically is set up to service amputee veterans and first responders that were injured either, after duty or during duty. So when I went and met these guys, it was, I told, this guy, Jeff Langston, and his son, Jake, I said, "Hey, we're going to go check this out." And they started cracking up. They're like, "All right, whatever." And so they just jumped on the bandwagon. I drove all the way from Seattle down to Sacramento. They came up from the Bay Area, and then we met these guys. And as soon as we got on site, the very first thing we saw was everybody running around, scurrying, going like, "We got to find a leg." We're like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, somebody jumped out of the plane and they didn't take their prosthetic off, and we're just afraid that it might have killed somebody." So turns out it was over at a field. There's nothing really to worry about. But that was my introduction to this group of like absolutely amazing veterans. So, and at that place, I actually got to meet, Jordan Stevenson, who introduced me to Colin, who's here with us today. And then they were, talking about this, Ranger Road Motors. And because I've been racing, pretty much anything with wheels, including tricycles when I was a little kid, I'll race anything. I thought, you know what? I think Lemons would be a really good thing. So I ended up like going and buying a GTI, and we ended up, converting it over to hand controls and redundant controls for, because we had one guy had one right arm, another one had no right arm, another one had no legs, so there's all these, and Aaron can talk about how we had to go in and try to make this car work. So we had to find a car that was actually going to survive, 17 and a half hours of Lemons, and B, we had to figure out who was going to work on it. So me being me, I didn't really give too many options or choices. I told Tim Tomas at Tomas Sport Tuning, "You're going to help build the car." and I told Jeff, "You're going to buy it." And then I went and started rallying around all these other people to get, this program going. And in the meantime, we had, Jordan and Colin and other people showing up to, again, we're trying to figure out who was going to do this, who's crazy enough to actually get out and actually do this. And Jay Lamb, the owner of Lemons, actually challenged us. He's like, and this is October. And he's like, and I said, I want to do the December race at Sonoma. And he's like, "In 2 months, you're going to build a hand controlled car?" And I'm like, and he goes, "Well, what car are you going to use?" "I don't know. I don't have one yet." And so he started laughing. He goes like, I will sponsor that, basically indefinitely if you're able to actually pull that off. And to me, that's a challenge. I absolutely love a challenge. So we went to work and we had, and sure enough, like with the help of, Aaron and Jeff and Colin and, Tim Tomas and his team, we built a car in 2 months and had it out on track, and they did phenomenally well. So yeah, go ahead, Ross. I see.
I got to say, I looked at some of the photos and some of the video and stuff like that online, and please, if you're a Lemons racer, don't take this the wrong way, but your GTI looks much nicer than a lot of cars at a Lemons race.
That was, Jay Lamb actually joked about that a little bit there. He made an introduction about Ranger Road and the GTI, and first thing everybody said is like $500 my ass. Right. And so he gave us, he said, look, because of the nature of what you're doing, you get the waiver, cool. and as long as you don't show up with a McLaren, which we'd be stupid to. I mean, it's like, if you're going to jump on the track with a McLaren up against the Vanagon, Andrew, I love you, but I don't think I'd race a McLaren against you. So then you're dumb enough to do it. So anyway, so Jay's like, great, man. If you want to go and spend 10 grand on a car and go race it up against a bunch of hoopties, all the power to you. So that's how we ended up getting, we made sure that we clarified that with Jay and, other people as well, John Pagel and, those guys. So
we got a shocking amount of grief in the paddock though, for showing up with an almost new GTI.
Which has its own stories, which is great because people would be like ripping into like, who the F and what the, and all of a sudden these guys get out and they have no legs. And immediately you watch them tuck tail, walking away like, never mind.
Yep. In a race that's full of LS1 powered RX-7s and stuff like that, we had the GTI and everybody was freaking out.
Yeah.
And then when our guys with prosthetics were literally pushing the car through tech, that was the last time we ever heard anything.
It's been positive ever since.
Well, I got to think that there is somebody listening to the show right now that's already going, a McLaren in a Lemons race. How do we make that work? Because some racers going to think that.
Aaron, I think they actually had some exotic out there. It's an Austin Martin, right? A DB7.
There has been a DB7.
Yeah.
There's been a few other things, and then there's definitely been race cars that had no business out there. Jericho 4-speeds and floater 9 inches and coilovers and everything, and they almost never make it past about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Karma's a bitch when you're dealing with crap can racing. So
how long has this program been going? When did you start this?
This is our third year now.
Okay.
Third year.
And plans for this year?
Yeah, lots of them.
Okay, got lots of plans. Good.
That's important.
Well, I'm catching a bit of grief because I've got these thoughts of grandeur in my head about we're going to go into the majors and we're going to do stuff with SCCA and thanks to what's his name, James Rogerson, some down in MSR. He's actually been building some Spec B cars or B Spec. No, what is it, Aaron?
B Spec. Yeah.
B Spec. Yes. Yeah, so this is how well versed I am in it. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't give a shit what we're doing. We're going to go race it. So we have a couple of drivers that are just, fantastic and really committed. So my idea is that we're able to actually go and introduce them to, some big, wheel to wheel racing. So hopefully this year we'll hit, a couple of the majors. I'm going to take my Lemons car, which is a 1990 Volkswagen Corrado, and race down. We're going to go Thunder Hill. Would be the first one that we're going to race, and that'll be kind of the litmus test for that to see how that pressure works. Because with Ranger Road and with the veterans, I mean, you never know what you're going to be running into because there's other bodies that we've raced with that we literally had to leave on the Saturday night and go for we had to take these guys in for emergency therapy sessions because it was so stressful. So, so not all environments fit what we're doing. So again, we want to go and try it. Last year we did some conference racing and they crushed it. They went in the 8-hour enduro up here and the guys did phenomenally well. So, I'm hoping that we're going to find, the similar thing with SCCA, which again, I love SCCA. Anybody that puts on, a race, I generally like.
Yeah.
So it's just the competitors I don't get along with all the time, but.
Well, let me ask, maybe this is an obvious question, but why are you doing this?
Well, it's chaos. It's kind of fun. This to actually make this stuff happen, Ross. I mean, come on. I mean, nobody else is doing it. I mean, anybody can go and buy an E46 and go stick a cage in it and go and be competitive. Go chop your arms off and your legs off, get blown up over, over in the sandbox, and then come back and do it. So we want to give these, our absolute heroes of the country, like something to do. Like this is some kick-ass stuff. And when you look at, what happens on a racetrack, you of all people know it's a family event. People will do anything. And if you're with good competitors, they want you to be competitive and they will help you out. And that's one of the things that with, as a veteran, you kind of miss your tribe. And to give that back to them and to have a place to go and something to do, and not just an event. I mean, anybody can go up, jump out of a plane, which trust me, the Freedom Jump is one of the raddest things we do. But to have an ongoing program like, Ranger Road Scuba and the hunting programs and stuff, you've got something to do every day. You're engaged all the time. You have a purpose all the time. So, having that, and then there's just the absolute rush of it. I mean, you're out there wheel to wheel with some of the most amazing people. And then when you come in and they come over to your paddock and stuff and they see who you are and what you're doing and stuff, there hasn't been an event yet that we haven't, we're not crying at some point, that it again, I'm always amazed along with my kids and my wife and, my other family members, what you actually accomplish at the end of the race is, like the fact that, if knock on wood, we all always finish safely, but what happens within that community and seeing the racing community joining up with our veteran community, it grabs you and it holds you and it doesn't let you go. So I thought we'd do it for a few races. It'd be shits and grins. We'd be like, hey, neat, sunshine and lollipops. We delivered them. Neat. But it really does grab you, suck you in, and makes me, at least, I'm not going to speak for Aaron, but it makes me want to do it more.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. I would add to that and say, like, one of the biggest reasons why we do it is just to try and give back. The people that we're really reaching out to, there's an inherent sense of camaraderie and the need to take on a challenge that a lot of these guys get out of service with, and then they find themselves sitting at home with nothing to do. And a lot of them will turn to drugs. A lot of them will turn to other destructive things. Some of them, quite a few of them, a disturbing amount of them will turn to suicide. And so really what we're trying to do is we're trying to touch as many lives as we can, bring them out to the racetrack, show them camaraderie, and a challenge, so part of why we do it with lemons is because you get a lot more of that in endurance racing.
Yeah.
Especially underprepared endurance racing. When stuff falls apart and the car isn't, we're not racing $300,000 purpose-built endurance cars. And it takes a tribe, it takes a family, and we all have to be there for each other. It's stressful, it's difficult, and we work through it. And so it's therapy.
Yeah.
And the brilliance of doing it with lemons is that we can do it with people who've never been in a race car before. So we can touch new lives. Yeah. We kind of have to take our hot shoes to the conference races and to the SCCA events. When we went to Portland for the 8-hour enduro last year, the closing speeds on the straightaway, there's a McLaren out there that's closing down in our GTI at probably 70, 80 miles an hour going into the braking zone. So we have to take some experienced guys to those, but we want to put people who have no idea what they're doing in the car. And at a lemons race, we can do that with a whole bunch of other people who have no idea what they're doing as well. But it's about touching lives and getting these guys out and saying, hey, there's challenges out in the real world still. And here, let's throw you in the middle of one.
Well, not to make light of what you said, but how much different is racing from drugs and destruction?
I personally, none. Well, lots. Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I've actually I'm public about it too, but I've been sober for about 26 years. And so it's like I came from that destructive past and this is it's a fair outlet, it really
is. Yeah. I'm going to say it's a good one that way. So yeah.
Some of us aren't quitters though.
Yeah.
The thing I would say about racing with regards to the other stuff is instead of killing you slowly, if you're going to die from it, it tends to be quick.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good way to look
I'll
at
tell
it.
you what, that dying slow shit's not fun.
Well, Colin, could you give listeners your background, sort of your military background, and why you are where you are today, and then we'll get you into what was that first race like? Because that's what I'm really interested in here. Yeah.
So background, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. I was in for 2 years before I got injured by an IED in Afghanistan. Lost both my legs. And then many years later, ran into this started this Ranger Road Motors thing. But the first event we did for Ranger Road Motors, me and my buddy, we did one of the gamblers down in Tennessee. And it was like late at night. I was up in Wisconsin hanging with my buddy. And he texted me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to do a gambler?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "What about this one?" I'm like, "That one's in like 3 weeks. And I'm in Wisconsin now, and it's in Tennessee." And he's like, "Well, I'll buy the truck and get it done." So then he built the truck, bought it, Ranger Road, put in some money for it. So that was like the first official Ranger Road Motors event. But then
just for listeners that don't know Gambler event.
Gambler is kind of like the off-road-ish version of Lemons in the sense that it's like a budget, like shitbox type deal, but it's more about going out on trails and picking up trash and couches that people leave behind and cleaning up the area. That way it kind of helps with the reputation of the off-road community, that we're not going out and trashing a place. We're actually like filling up giant dumpsters with garbage that other people have left behind. We're hauling out couches and wrecked cars and refrigerators. So that's pretty much the Gambler's like main mission. Yeah. But it's also just a good time just riding around in the backwoods of Tennessee or whatever state, because it's like different chapters per state. So we did that. And then I guess that was in September. And then December, I went to the Sonoma race. And that was my first Lemons race, Ranger Road Motors' first Lemons race. But for me, it was exceptionally scary because not only was it my first Lemons race, it was my first time driving a car, because I've never really owned a car. I've only owned trucks. And I grew up off-roading and riding quads and dirt bikes. And then they're like, "Hey, we're going to Sonoma and you're going to race a car on it." And I was like, oh okay, neat. So then I got there and I did, and I didn't die.
So how, I know this is kind of an obvious question, but what's the thrill level or excitement level or challenge level or fear level, the difference between what you experienced overseas and your first lap at Sonoma behind the wheel of this super high powered, expensive race car?
I don't know. I'm kind of weird in like high stress situations, like right before it and like right when it starts, I'm like shitting myself. But then 2-3 minutes into it, I calm down and I'm just in it doing what I need to do. Like probably like 30 minutes before I get in the car, you'll just catch me sitting in the corner quiet, and I'm just kind of finding my Zen space. And then I get in the car and I'm cool, but everyone's strapped me in. I'm thinking, I'm scared as crap. I'm going to piss myself. I do have to pee again, and I'm strapped in. Awesome. I can't wait to drive for the next hour having to pee, and I'm terrified. But then I get like 2 laps in and I'm good. I'm just in the zone.
Well, hey, this is like rule number 1 as an endurance driver. If you got to go, you go.
Nah.
You just go in the seat and leave it for somebody else.
No, I'm a classy girl. I don't do that.
Well, you would not be the first race driver to have done that in the seat of a car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why the pads come out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll watch me get in and I'm literally stuffing paper towels down my pants just in case.
If I did it before a paralyzed guy went in, that might not be bad. They won't even know.
See, it's that kind of thinking, I think, that separates you from the rest, right?
Well, it's me saying it that separates us. Everyone thinks it. No,
yeah.
You guys don't think about that stuff?
Okay. So that first race, that's your first time on a track?
That was, my first time on a track, my first time driving like a car aside from like getting groceries.
And I should add, just because I think I'm sure there's some Lemons racers, listening in. But for those who haven't been to a Lemons race at Sonoma, this isn't, a CCA race where there might be 20 cars, or a track day where there might be 20 cars. This is a Lemons race. His first time on the track, there were 135 cars on Sonoma at once.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I did a champ car race. It was Chump Car then at Road Atlanta a bunch of years ago. And I can't remember the exact number, but I think we did the math, and it was something like if you put them all nose to tail, there was 3 feet between each car. I got to think 135 cars at Sonoma is pretty much that, right?
Yep, more or less.
Well, except we all wind up 3 wide in every turn.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I guess your preparation, like when you showed up, did you have an idea of the line through a corner? Because I've seen some people show up at some of those races, and they basically drive down the middle of the track because they think that's what you do on the road. So that's what I do on the track. And I'm curious, how much prep knowledge did you have before you get did Aaron have you on Forza for 8,000 hours of practice?
No, because actually me and Aaron hadn't become friends yet at that point, but I knew, like, I understood the physics of racing, and like I understand the physics of how like vehicles behave and like how you should take a turn and all that stuff. I've just never done it on pavement. I've always just beat my truck up through the woods.
Well, the last, most of the low budget endurance races that I've been involved in, there's just about as much off-road as there is on-road.
I get yelled at when I do that.
It always rains at Sonoma too, so the track's muddy and it's ugly. So one of the things that we do is we usually bring out 2 professional instructors. We've varied through 4 or 5 different guys depending on who's available, but we try to have 2 instructors and an additional car, usually a street car, so we can do driver passenger, and we'll always run the practice day. So we're not sending people out onto a hot track completely green. We're giving them as much instruction as we can give them in, say, 3 20 or 30 minute sessions, which arguably isn't enough to send them out onto a track. They're still pretty green. But at the very least, we have a few things that we do that are, top of mind. And honestly, the first one is where the turn worker stands.
Good point.
And then it's, how not to get crashed. And then we start looking at, okay, now this is how to actually drive.
Especially in a place
the lessons. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, especially at Sonoma, where there's so many blind corners up over the top of a hill, that's priority 1. But go ahead, Colin.
Sometimes, veterans, we're a special group, and sometimes the lessons don't quite stick the way they should. I remember it was like the second day at Sonoma, and I'm talking to my buddy Yance about like this one turn that's been giving me trouble, and I'm talking about like, I keep apexing too early, and I just can't quite find it even when I have no cars around. And then he looks at me and he's like, what's an apex? And I'm like, dude, you raced a day. What do you mean, what's an apex, dude? So I had to drag the whiteboard over and like do some arts and crafts for him.
Which is why Colin ended up being the crew chief now. So he's actually, he volunteers his seat for other people to get in and go race. And so he can actually focus on crewing. And there's, I'm telling you, Ross, like Aaron and I've been to a lot of tracks. We had, Kevin Hopper there. We had, Pete Bristow there. Now we've got, Ken Fiduka and Bill Ecker. Yeah, we've got some really, really fantastic instructors out there. But for us, it was really like we had to back up and then keep backing up and then keep backing up and then realize, holy crap, we really do have to start at the beginning. So that's the brake pedal, and so there's, it's been such a big learning curve for us. One of the big things that we learned at Thunder Hill was the safety crews came over and they're like, so we'd like to know about, your drivers a little bit. And then from that, their perspective is like, well, it's really nice to know when somebody crashes and we got to take them out of a car, their back was already broken. Like it didn't break in the, like their leg.
When he's dragging himself away from the car.
Yeah.
Like I'm racing, I'm not even wearing both prosthetics. I just have the one on. So they just see a guy dragging himself across the grass, missing a leg.
So, and watching the guys, we got to put down, fall mats or, some sort of like cushion. So it was like, now quick, get out. You got, just a couple of seconds, and watching these guys fall out and stuff and winging their legs out. And it's just a different experience all the way around. And like when you watch a $500,000 leg come flying out the window, you catch it. Like, it's one expensive football.
So who wants to share kind of the craziest, most interesting story that you've had so far with, somebody one of the vets who's, struggled the most or got it or nailed it, learned the most or whatever, just,
Joe Qualls. Joe Qualls, man, that guy is like, he's a super stud. So Joe shows up to a race and he was, he's a tall guy. He is a big dude. So we didn't have a suit that was big enough for him because he's like 6'18", and so we had to make sure that he, fit in the car and all that stuff. And I mean, the guy has just been like working his ass off. And so we finally get him out to Thunder Hill and stuff. We get him into the car and just seeing like, he was so excited to be a race car driver. He literally got in the car and he's like, and he had his helmet on, he had everything on, it was all steamed up and he couldn't see anything. And he goes to get in the car and stuff and almost knocks himself out. I almost fell over pissing myself laughing. But this is one guy that I just wanted to mention because he really did, reach out to Ranger Road for help. He's received the help, and now he's like, he loves to introduce himself like, I'm Joe Qualls. I'm a race car driver.
That's cool.
And but then at the Ridge,
what's that?
At the Ridge, we go. It was the first race at the Ridge, and I go, Jordan goes, and then Qualls goes, and Qualls is a big, just nervous wreck, and he gets in and he slays it, lays down the fastest lap time by a fair margin. And it's like, Qualls, you're like this giant nervous creature. You're like a paradox in the car. And then Jordan broke a wheel stud and I didn't get to beat that time. So,
okay. So you have learned the most important race car driver lesson. That is always have an excuse.
Yep. There you go.
And blame it on everybody else as well. So yeah.
So I'm going to double down a little bit on Joe. Joe still has a lot of nerves. He's claustrophobic. He's got PTSD. So when the time comes to put him in the car, I have to be there. I'm his comfort bunny or something. Yeah, I'm his teddy bear. I've sat or stood next to the car in grid with my hand on his hand, and we're singing a country song together because he has a country song that he runs through his mind to keep him calmed down. I put him in the car, and what Jay was saying about his visor was fogged up, and he slammed his head in the car, and he started to have a panic attack. He tore the harnesses off and got out of the car. Putting him in the car is a process. We take about 40 minutes. We usually put him in first because we take about 40 minutes to get him in. We get him in the car, no harnesses or anything, get the seat in place, get him calmed down. All right, pop the helmet on, hook the air up to it immediately. And, get air blowing around him. Okay, are you comfortable? You let me know when you're comfortable. He starts getting antsy and grabbing for the harnesses. I'm like, no, we're going to put the harnesses on when you're calm. We're not moving to the next step until you're calmed down. And so we just go step by step. And then he gets out there and he starts to get comfy and the nerves go away and he finds somebody to follow. And like Colin said, we're at the Ridge, and in the 210s right in that range, and he's 3 seconds faster than anybody else we put in the car, and he weighs like twice as much as Colin. It's like driving the car with a passenger in it, and he's still faster. He can be totally smooth and everything. It just it's just about nerves and stress, and it was a huge learning experience for me that my job with Ranger Road is to basically be the technical director. I'm the problem solver. I started out as the crew chief. Colin started to move in that position. It's like, sweet, you figure out strategy and you figure out fuel stops, and I'm going to figure out how to deal with all the other stuff. And so, I showed up as a technical director. I'm an ME. I have a background in accessibility for Microsoft, along with all my other stuff that I do. I'm like, okay, how are we going to make it so that a guy with one leg and a guy with no legs and a guy with one arm and a person who's fully able-bodied and a dude who's 6'6" and 285 pounds can all drive the same race car.
Yeah.
And so I got through all that stuff and we were there. And then I had to figure out, what do we do for the PTSD guys? Because they have as much of a problem as anything else. And so it's really about, conversation and calming. I got to put Joe in the car. I'll clear the paddock space. There won't be another human being within 20 feet of us, so that we can just get him totally calm. And it was a revelation for me in terms of, how the human mind works, and then trying to get him into the space of being able to drive as well. And some of the calming meditation type stuff that you do. I mean, we'll do lazy eights, but I'm not doing lazy eights to switch his brain on. I'm doing them to distract him.
Yeah.
And so it was a whole different challenge. I came into it thinking about the mechanical space and the ergonomics and, like somatically, what do we got going on here? And then we ended up with the mental stuff.
So I'm curious whether you've seen, well, I guess, what have you seen as the takeaway results of some of this? Like, does a guy like that, is it helping him when he gets off the track afterwards?
Yes.
And how?
Well, and so I can't say that would work great for absolutely everybody. I would say that it works really well for Joe, because when he got in the car, it didn't matter if he was slow or fast. He had conquered that thing that he was, kind of afraid of, and that he was fast made it that much better. If he'd come off the tracks, as a matter of fact, when we were at Thunder Hill, he wasn't fast. He was too excited. The track was kind of wet. He ended up putting one of our cars off and in the dirt and bent the suspension up, and he got out, and he was a race car driver. He had his first crash. He was a race car driver.
Yeah.
And so he had still conquered it. And he had still made that move forward, and it was still, progression for him. Joe was homeless for like 12 years. He didn't have purpose. And so what we do is lend purpose to these people. We give them meaning. And unfortunately, because it's motor racing, we can only do it, every couple months. But the camaraderie that comes from it, the group of friends that we have, we're all in contact with each other. If Joe's having a hard day, we call up somebody who's near to him, and he'll show up on a motorcycle and go, "Yo, Joe, let's go for a ride. We're going to go out and do stuff." So we built a family out of this as well off the track. But what we do at the track, everybody's a little bit amped. We calm everybody down a little bit, and then we get them out there. But they got family. And we've had a couple times where people had maybe a little bit too much energy, and the family thing didn't quite gel the way it should have. Some of the COVID stuff kind of got us all a little bit too excited to be at the racetrack, I think. And it was really, really obvious that something was amiss, because that's probably the most important part. Like, you'll find few paddocks outside of a professional motorsport event where you've got 40 people supporting one car.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a big deal. Like, we have, my wife as well as her cousin have to cater the event, because otherwise nobody eats. So, I think the family and the camaraderie, and just knowing that somebody else is there for them, they can make a phone call and get help.
So, Colin, can you speak to how this has impacted your life?
I mean, it's definitely kind of changed my people skills a little bit, because I'm trying to be a little bit better. Especially like now that I'm crew. Yeah,
it's a shame that this is a podcast and people aren't seeing your faces right now.
Yeah, because now that I'm crew chief, I have to interact with like Joe Qualls and other people that are a little bit more sensitive to things, whereas I'm a very like me, just do the shit, like do the thing, and that's it. Like, I don't care, like just do it. And I've become a little bit more conscious of like how people's feelings affect how they're going to perform or do something. So it's kind of made me a little bit better to deal with when I'm like correcting people. I mean, I still not totally great at it. I did almost break Joe one day. That was my bad. But
so Jay, Aaron, how's he done in that area?
No, he's actually doing really well. I just love giving Colin a hard time, because why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So like, it just makes me feel good when I get to go beat up on him a bit. But
No, I gotta say, Colin. I gotta say, Colin. You're trying hard, and I can tell. When we were, the particular race that he's talking about, he came over to me and said, "Hey, I need help. I don't know how to deal with this. My natural response will not be accepted." And the forethought to understand that, like, the way I'm about to approach this person is not going to go well, and we're at the racetrack and we're family and we should really all just kind of get along and go drive around in circles and have a good time. That's I know how hard you're trying, and he's making progress for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's a lot to know. I mean, the fact that, Colin and several other the people that have showed up and never been to a racetrack before, and to watch how much they've developed just within that race environment is really impressive. That it doesn't go to say that it doesn't come without a lot of work, because it did. Like, they all worked hard at it. And that's, as far as when we started this, I mean, the idea, everything happened that we wanted to have happen, but then all the other extra stuff came with it. All of a sudden there's this responsibility of, like, we actually care for these people. Like, there was a bit of, like, just kind of target fixation that you're going to do this, you're going to get it done, you're going to have a great time. Like, that's like a very high end, view of it. But then all of a sudden, I mean, you meet these people, and you see how much they actually care about each other in the sport, especially, like, because we had, Yant show up and Colin, and they're really good friends and stuff, and watching them, interact with each other, and was really great, and to see, the support that they gave each other. You want to be more a part of that, and then to see how they actually develop as drivers and also competitors. Like, it's not just like, how do they get that line right? They're looking at the whole thing. They see the whole track. They're seeing the whole car. They're seeing the whole team. And that's the part that really kind of blew my mind, that they were actually paying attention, that it wasn't just us looking at this. Like, they were looking at it too. They wanted to be successful. Like, they wanted to hand that car off to the next driver. Like, they actually gave a crap about it, and they weren't trying to chase down that corner. They're trying to finish the race.
So I'm just curious, because that's who I am. But I'm curious as to, I guess, the technical side of it. First of all, the first part is, what's been the biggest, I guess, driving technique challenge that somebody's come into this having not had any racing experience, that you're like, oh, they struggle with understanding whatever the line, or how to brake, or when to get on the throttle, something in that area. I'm curious what you found, because you're taking somebody who's obviously a very intelligent person, who has been very accomplished in their life, who is now in a different situation, but they're used to stress, and you're putting them into something and just say, go. What's the big thing that they've struggled with?
Slow in, fast out.
So be impatient?
No, that you're on a racetrack, you're in a race car, but it doesn't mean you have to have the throttle down all the time.
Right. Okay. So
it literally is just that, like, slow down, you'll go faster. Calm down, you'll go faster. Be smooth.
Because at the ridge we had, our car has ABS and traction control, stability control, and all that crap. So at the one of the ridge races, we had people just plowing through turns, and the car's doing all of its computer magician crap to keep them on the track. And they're thinking, I'm going fast. And it's like, yeah, the car kept you alive. And, like, after a day, we looked at the tires and we had slicks, essentially. And it's like, you're going too fast into everything, and the car is doing all this stuff for you. And it's like, just because it's doing it doesn't mean you're doing it. Like, they kind of had a hard time with that.
They actually they beat the front tires off the car, and they did so to such a degree that the ESP in the car finally threw its hands up. I don't think I've ever seen a VAG product do that before, where it just threw its hands up and said, "No, you know what? I cannot pulse the ABS unit and try and stabilize this anymore. You're on your own." I think part of what we end up with is, a lot of these guys are thrill seekers.
Uh-huh.
They get out, they're adrenaline junkies, and they go skydiving or any one of a number of different things, and we get them out to the racetrack, and then they just want to go faster. They just want to go faster, and it doesn't matter if they're doing it right or if they're if it's on a skill assessment. The only number that they have, the only metric they have to understand what they're doing is lap time. And so with what little we're able to train them, we tend to have our newest drivers go fast but are very abusive to the car in an environment where we're going to ask them to be in the car for 2 hours. And so Colin will go out and he'll be about as fast or 90% as fast as the fastest lap of the weekend, and when he brings the car back, it's perfect. The hallmark of an endurance racer.
Barely use any gas.
Yeah, exactly. But the new guys tend to abuse the car and chasing after a lap time. It's almost sort of track day-esque. And they beat the front tires off of it, and they use the steering wheel as a brake, and they mat it when they're exiting a turn and smoke the inside tire. They do everything you could do to just be over excited in the car. And I think that's probably the biggest issue that we have is just calming them down. And we do it on the radio quite a bit. I mean, more than once I've made a call where I'm like, okay, that's 205. Congratulations, the fastest time of the day. I want you to go 2 seconds a lap slower.
Yeah.
I think Colin, you might be the only one that's ever actually listened to me when I say that.
Yeah.
So basically what they're doing is they're driving the car like a rental car. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Essentially it is. Yeah.
Yeah, to them it is.
Yeah. Okay, so the other technical question, and Aaron, you touched on this a bit, but how the heck do you build a car that works for somebody that's got all their limbs, got one missing, got two missing? I mean, how does that work? What does that car look like?
Redundant.
So it has MPS hand controls. The controls where it connects to the pedals are mounted really high. And so I did a little bit of trickery with some of the ratios on the arms that hang off the hand controls so that I could mount the bracketry high on the pedal set and kind of keep it out of Colin's way. And I'll get to that in a second. And still have full range of motion from the hand controls. We do kind of have we take a bit of a survey at the beginning of the weekend and say, hey, everybody who's going to use hand controls, what's our predominant side / style? Because there's a few different styles of hand controls, and some people want to use it with the right hand. Some people want to use it with the left hand. Some people, it's the way that their brain is wired because they signal or they, what have you, they have a DSG and they bump the shifter. And so we have a couple of different sets of hand controls that we can switch between. We switch them left to right when we need to, when the consensus is, kind of a given thing. Now with Colin's actually one of our unique cases where Colin actually drives with his left prosthetic because he has his left knee. And while that's super handy because it means the pedals and the steering wheel can just be pedals and a steering wheel, it also means that he can't tell when his foot is hung up on any of the stuff that's now underneath the steering column. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of the reason why we have to go, we have to be very diligent in trying to keep all the edges smooth, everything kind of up high and out of the way. So, I mean, that's kind of what we're doing with regards to that stuff. We have a few other projects that we're working on. We're working with the mechanical and engineering team from Virginia Commonwealth University right now. They're doing a couple of projects for us to do a sort of quick release pedal cover. One of the issues that we were running into recently is with all the G-forces, we have a couple of paraplegics that run with us, and their feet tend to slide up underneath the brake pedal. And so when they push on the hand controls, the brake pedal pushes down and subsequently smashes their own foot, which they can't feel. All they know is the brakes just got really hard to push. They're smashing their own feet. So we're working on a blocker that covers the pedals that can then be folded down so that people who are using their feet can still drive, but once again, it has to be every surface has to be smooth. There can't be any snags. It has to be completely secure in case of an accident. We're also working with them right now on an idea that we just straight up stole from Alex Zanardi's BMWs, which is the fold out handle that helps Alex get in and out. It's less about how these guys, my concern at least, is less about how these guys can drive the car, if they can drive the car comfortably, and way more about whether or not they can get out of it in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
That's the emergency. Shutoffs need to be on both sides. You need to, make sure that they can reach everything.
Yep, kill switches everywhere, fire poles everywhere. Like we said before, we have people who only have the use of one arm, and we don't get to choose which arm that is. They need to be able to reach everything.
Yeah.
Comms buttons on the shifter, comms buttons on the steering wheel. There's one comms button on the hand controls. So it's just, there's just a lot of stuff going on in there.
Yeah. It's kind of mind-boggling to think of, when Zanardi races, and hopefully he does again.
Yeah.
They're building the car for one guy, right?
They're building it for multiple. He ran the 24 Hours of Spa a few years ago.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Oh man, who was it with?
Yeah.
Timo Glock. Ran with a handful of people, and so they had to come up with a system where, like, Alex, the car had like a brake pedal next to the gas pedal on the other side. Just a complete second pedal set, like totally out of the way, and they like locked his foot in and a few other things.
I guess what I meant was he's typically the only one that needs those controls. Like, when he did Daytona,
true. Yeah.
His co-drivers they got the standard equipment, right?
Yep.
You're having to switch between, like you said, different drivers with different challenges, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And we're generally doing that, Saturday morning at the track with a big oh shit on our face and three people looking at it, taking it apart and going like, okay, I think I can do this. And then what if we do this? So we are really blessed between, just Aaron and Tim being able to, Tim Tomas with Tomas Sport Tuning in Berkeley. Like they really do work together extremely well, and it's, they have overcome a lot of challenges with this mechanically.
Yeah. I mean, it can be difficult because we do, we run up and down the West Coast. We do a couple of Sonoma races every year. The car lives in the Bay Area. I live in the Seattle area. We got drivers coming in from, the other side of the country. And so it's basically like, it's Friday at 4:00 and we know what the challenge is. So I always bring drills and grinders and scrap metal and everything else to the track.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Hey guys. So I don't think somebody listening to the show, if they're not already sitting here thinking, how can I help this group out, this team out? There's something wrong with you if you're not thinking that. So how does somebody listening to this go, I want to help somehow? And, I got to think that's from just, hey, I want to cheer for you guys to, I want to help with more hands-on or whatever. What do they do?
Well, I know every one of the listeners has about $10 million sitting around in their back pocket. So we need about 2 million of that from each of you. No, anyways, what we need
as a veteran, I actually, if anyone has a spare like trophy truck lying around,
a spare one just lying around. That might happen, Yeah.
Yeah. BJ Baldwin, I know you're listening.
They got like pre-runners and pre-runners for the pre-runners. Get rid of one of the pre's. I'll take it.
Yeah. Baldwin's really been magnanimous. I mean, hopefully he's listening there. So BJ, we need some love here, bud.
Yeah.
No, reach out to rangerroad.org. It's Ranger spelled normally, road.org. You can donate there. You can reach out to us through the website or j@rangerroad.com or .org. I don't even know my own email. j@rangerroad.org. Shoot me an email. We'll definitely get hooked up and make this happen. We need people. We need right now, like because of COVID, we have limits on track attendance. So that's like people at the track is a little tougher. But if there's people listening down in the Bay Area, we definitely need help. I mean, we need like labor stripping decals off trailers. We need, there's all sorts of stuff that we need help with all the time. But inexpensive racing is, you can literally do it, with $5. So all joking aside, we always need money. Like we really do. And that's, Jeff Langston with JLO Builders. I mean, he put up a lot to get this thing running, same with myself and Aaron and Leslie. And, this has been a labor of love. We'll continue to keep doing that, but really that's the big thing is if you see us out there, definitely, cheer us on, it makes everybody feel good. And, and Michelle Graff, between her and Aaron, introducing, talking about Ranger Road and introducing us to Ross, it's that stuff. If you know somebody else in your network, reach out to them, tell them about Ranger Road, because you never know who you're talking to, who it's going to affect. Because since I joined Ranger Road, it's amazing how many people I've been introduced to that have a veteran in their life that's suffering with PTSD, that has, or is thinking about, suicide, is thinking, and that's our biggest thing is like, we're really trying to knock those numbers down. Yeah. We want to give people a lot more, tools, to go use on a daily basis. And we'll be there. Like it's, even though Colin hates it, like I'll be texting him at 3:00 in the morning, like it's, we are a family. And we're a dysfunctional family. So
well, that's another description for racing too.
But we literally have a shrink.
We do. Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. Doc Andrew Barry, so he joins us, to give us, he'll listen and be like, here's a suggestion. And every one of us are going like, and he'll say like 3 words, you're like, oh, so, because I'm already like, when I'm at a race, I'm already 3 races in, like I'm thinking 3 races from now of like where we need to be, what we need to do, all that stuff. And it's the yin and yang. I need an Aaron, and I need a Colin, and I need a Jeff, and I need a Tim, to make this stuff work, and that's the dysfunction of it. Like we're interdependent on each other because we all have weaknesses, and it's just filling in those gaps and having a sense of humor about it. And that's the part with, when you're dealing with, veterans and first responders that have, they've had the worst day of their life.
Yeah. They've
had it, and, so the sense of humor that comes along with that, I get it, like it's shit. I was, burned alive and had all sorts of good times with my lungs and all that stuff. And after bad shit happens, like there's, that trauma doesn't go away, but there are tools to deal with it. Most importantly, there's people to deal with it with you. You're not alone. And really for us and watching, Aaron's kids and Jeff's kids and my kids, they get to grow up in an environment that has not been really accessible to a lot of people. And like when I watch my 8-year-old, who's now like, he was 5 when he first showed up, didn't know what a wheelchair was, didn't know all that, but they're out there and they're not like, they don't feel weird around, somebody that has got, different disabilities. They're just out there to help, and I've got, pictures of my son and, we're fortunate enough to be shooting, Leno's garage, last, 2 years ago now. Anyways, and watching, Jackson cruise up and, just grab the wheelchair from was it Kevin, and, just do what needed to get done. Like it wasn't different or weird or anything, like, so for us, I mean, one of the big benefits is we get to watch our kids actually be much more involved in so many more what would be emotional situations that are just not emotional anymore. It's just like they're just people, and that's all we want is just to be treated as people and be equal. So Ranger Road, we get that. We get to, provide that opportunity and normalize, some of these extraordinary situations. And, that's where I get all like choked up right now and stuff. So, anyways, Aaron, you take over. I
was going to say, speaking of sense of humor, I did see Jay Leno on some images on your website and stuff. And what was that like?
Damn cool, man. He is one of the most generous. He's such a sweet man. even when, one of his teammates hit the car, he came over to, kind of, I don't know what his intentions were, but when he saw the car and the team that he hit, I'll tell you, there was an attitude change. There was a shift. He was definitely humbled by the whole situation, but in shooting that, just seeing how he just hung out with everybody and all he wanted to do is talk cars.
Yeah.
That's it. He was just a normal dude. Just wanted to talk cars.
I think it's so interesting that the way cars connect with certain people, and it's that common thing. And maybe that's the common part of this family, right?
It is. There's a pun intended. It is the vehicle that keeps us together.
Yeah.
So,
well, thanks guys for being on this podcast. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to doing this and telling the story because, again, if you can't help, if you're not sitting here right now going, well, what can I do? There's something wrong with you, period. Maybe Colin would use a different word there than me saying there's something wrong with you.
If you don't want to help us out in our organization, I just have a question. Why do you hate America?
Okay. And on that note, so I will put, I'll put the link for the website in the show notes as well. And, you guys will be stars to another 12 people again. Goes live.
Excellent. Well,
thank you so much,
we'll push it on our website, so it might jump up to 14. So.
Yeah. I think we'll get a few more than that. But again, thanks for that. And man, I hope I get to one of these races this year with you guys. Obviously, well, I hope to get to more races this year because of we have more of a normal year this year. But it'd be cool to come out and hang out with you guys and see your family in action.
Well, Ross, we can't thank you enough. And same with all the listeners, anybody out there that can, feels they want to help, please do, just reach out to rangerroad.org.
Yep. Thanks guys. Keep having fun and go for it. Have fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross.
Thanks.
Do you have a burning question about racing or high-performance driving? Then head to speedsecrets.com and check out the Ask Ross column. Every week, Ross answers a question, the one you may be wondering about right now. And if your question has not been answered already, zap Ross an email at info@speedsecrets.com. He will add it to the list, and your question will be published on the Speed Secrets website. Ask away at info@speedsecrets.com.